Wait for a few minutes. There's somebody there. Hi, how are you? Just waiting a moment or two to allow people to jump on, and I'll start. I just want to remind everybody that everybody's methods of doing things are different, and that's what being diverse is supposed to be. Because if the universe wanted us all to be the same, it would have made us all the same. But consciousness is something that continually expands and learns as it grows, like the universe, constantly expanding. And no two people are going to think exactly the same or have the exact same methods as person A or person B. I wanted to make this video about the Akashic Records, what they are, where you can find them, and how to connect to them. So, without delay, the Akashic Records is a living library of information. It is a place where you can meditate to travel to. Usually it's through meditation, but I have formed my own method of using part of my consciousness, kind of like spare space on a hard drive that you partition to make RAM to help your computer work faster or to give it better, processing speeds. You can use part of the memory of the computer as a space to increase other things like video quality and all that kind of stuff. So what I do is I take part of my consciousness and I place it into the Akashic Records. I don't necessarily travel there through meditation. It's a way of how an ascended master consciousness creates a universe. It takes a piece of itself, some of its energy, and it throws it out there into the darkness. And the more energy it focuses on, creates the universe or the system that it's supposedly connected to. So that's how I work with the Akashic Records. I take part of my mind, I place it there, and it acts like a tap or a conduit or an antenna. All the information available, I receive. I don't go there to channel, because channeling is very hazardous because you don't know what's on the other side of a channel. I use this as a way to gain information. I get a thought or a certain information connects to me as a thought, because what's information originally when it hits you? It's a frequency, and your brain breaks it down into a specific message. And that message I use as a researching tool. So like I'll get a specific message about XYZ, whatever it may be, and I will look up what I've been hearing about this or what my mind is understanding about the message. And that's how I research, that's how I find correlating information that matches each other. It's called cross-referencing, analyzation, critical thinking. And the reason why I do this is because I like to be impeccable. I don't like to make mistakes when I'm talking or researching things. I like to be as impeccable as I can. I like to explain things. The more details that you have, the better, because how do you learn unless you have the finer details? How do you understand something unless you have the finer details? So what I do is, like I said, it's not something I can just teach. It's something that it just happens. Like when I'm writing, when I'm drawing, or when I'm sitting in silence and meditation, I can connect to this organic library, and it is located in the Earth Center. It's basically I wrote about it in one of my dream visions. It's located at the back of the temple, and as you enter this, there's an etherical river that connects to this library. It's kind of like a boat dock kind of thing, and you just kind of jump into the river, and you can actually exit our world and enter the more major tributary that divides and takes you to other celestial bodies called planets or other Earths. And um, I've only done that a few times, but I don't like to venture too far because I like to find my way back and all that. But the library is pretty much alive. There's trees and bushes and everything, but there's books everywhere in my version of it. And it's not going to be the same for everyone. You know, some people say that there's a holographic book that has symbols on it. Some people say it's just a crystal they touch and they can get any kind of information from people alive on the world to past lives to future lives to what you're doing right at this moment. Like everything that you do is documented. There's a how do I explain this part? There's a specific spirit connected to each one of us that documents, or I guess you could call it documents, your life, your experiences, your karmic ties. Uh, some call it the librarian, some call it the my sister dreamt about this guy, and it was a dream that she had that she had traveled. She was killed by somebody, and she went down to the spirit world, and she brought with her a great fire, and the fire represents how much love and positivity you have. Like your fire is burning bright today, you know. And there was a man sitting with a clay cylinder, and he was engraving symbols and writing into the cylinder, and he was documenting her life, you know. And she couldn't quite understand it, but I like did a little bit more digging, and I found out that this was actually the person who documents all of your experiences and doesn't really weigh out your goods and bads, because to the creation there is no good and bad. There's choices, there's cause and effect, there's karma. It's like every choice you make has a action or a reaction and a sequence or a consequence. You know, I don't like using negative words like consequence. I like sequences, a sequence of events that cause ripples in the timeline, your specific timeline, that like throwing a rock into a pond, there's ripples, and as those ripples ripple out, they eventually smoothen back out and creates balance. And a lot of the times that we make these choices, we don't usually make conscious choices. We make choices on impulse, which many of us need to realize that we need to think and consciously make choices and weigh out our odds, our pros and our cons when we make these choices. Like, what's the lesser of the two choices that is going to be a less of a negative impact in my life? So I like to make the better of the two choices. You know what I'm saying? Choose a lesser of two evils type thing. But that's a different podcast. This one's more of how I use the Akashic Records, where they are and what they are. And I think I covered that pretty well. Um, if you have any questions, yes, the four agreements, Alexander. That is great. Exactly. I actually write about those in my book that's coming out. Um, in my own words, of course. I don't copy anything. I absorb, I apply, and I regurgitate, basically, you know? It's not hard if you can find the motivation to apply the teachings to yourself. And with no further ado, this is about the end of the video. I wasn't intending on being on here forever, just a few minutes to briefly go over how my method of connecting to the Akashic Records is. And I'll briefly go over them again. It's like taking some of my mind and putting it in the library. I've never ever like really seen any guards guarding this library, but I have seen a podium with remains of people around it. Don't know what kind of people. And then I seen a doorway that was a little dusty and had like vines growing on it. And so I opened that doorway. I went inside, and there was this living library on the other side of the door. And in this library, there was a stream of etherical energy that connected to, huh? Okay, just a minute. We went to the river, and the boy was swimming in the river. But it's like taking memory of a computer and partitioning it off as a part of your extra RAM, so you can do other things in that little partition and still do your main tasks. So it's kind of like multitasking. And I just leave a bubble of my consciousness in the library, and when I need to, I tap into that little bubble, and all the little uh, geysers of water or information that come out of that library, my little bubble of consciousness acts as an antenna or a conduit to absorb that and then send it straight to my mind, kind of like a radio signal. And so if it's easy to understand if you like know what I'm talking about. It's like many people use meditation. I don't like to follow the mainstream ideas because I have a bad feeling about mainstream, and that it is intentionally teaching people a reverse programming that will keep them from their ascension process. You know, I like to follow the crystal grid and the crystal spiral, not the Fibonacci sequence. That's actually a siphoning sequence that siphons the energy from the world and gives it to the phantom matrix. And this is stuff out of the freedom teachings from the CDT plates of the cloister Dorator texts from the cloister races of pre-Atlantis times. And I would like to come out with a future podcast that discusses this, and it could be a group of us or whatever, but I'm seriously connecting to those teachings a lot these days. A lot of it makes sense. And there's only like 3 translators on the whole world, and they all work together. And the last time this stuff came out was Jesus, if you believe all that. But he was also trying to teach this stuff, and one of the main reasons why he got so much ridicule. But at the same time, believe what we want, you know, be careful what you do believe in and what you put energy into. I like to do a lot of deep analyzations and stuff. So, and my beliefs and my opinions do change as I learn more information, and I have layers and layers of, like an onion, of information that I could put out there. And belief systems do change as you are presented with something else. Like before the event happened to me, it was 2016 in the Winter Solstice. So it was like the days of the Magi. And I didn't know anything about this kind of stuff. And the moment this happened, I was suddenly connected to a golden consciousness that I can't explain. I had visuals. I had a third person perspective from my spirit being above myself. I explained this in an earlier podcast on Esoteric Hours with Bradley Powers and Cassidy Lightwing. Floyd Hancock and Jim Andre, we all did a podcast about my book that is coming out soon. And I briefly told my story, but I would like to tell my story in depth. And I will schedule another podcast that will explain my story, which is really unique and different than most people's stories or encounters. And this was so real. Like, it gave me goosebumps, uh, uncontrollable sobbing, a burst of that made me almost explode. I started speaking a way that was like, when you bump into a really old friend that you haven't seen for a long time, and you tell them, where have you been? We've missed you. And then I analyzed that. What I said, I was like, who is we? You know, who's we? We missed you. Where have you been, brother? And it's like, who's we? This is crazy. But I'm not crazy. It's just that situation was a little bit like crazy to the normal person. But to me, it opened my eyes and it changed my perception. Like, I was a normal Joe before this happened. And after this happened, there's just something different. I know things, I connect to things. It's like I activated a strand or two of my DNA when this happened, because I was learning things that I had never heard about, but I did research and I found out more things. And it's just, that's how the process works. You have to have the intention and the desire to, you know, wow, I would like to activate and get some abilities. Just that intention alone is all it takes, and it starts happening. Like, I've talked with this a little bit with my friends at work, and like, one of the guys told me that ever since I've explained a little bit of this to him, he's seeing it everywhere. He's seeing it on social medias, he's seeing it on the news, he's seeing it out in the actual world with other people. And it rose his awareness to a point where he is now paying attention, and he is more conscious of his surroundings and all that stuff. And it's really interesting how a higher vibration can rub off on somebody else and raise theirs to the point that opens their perception to something more and beyond the five senses. The five physical senses is what keeps us locked in a physical body, but the extrasensory perceptions is what gives you that desire to make out of body travels and stuff like that. Like, it's incredible. But I'm going to end this video. I kind of went off onto a different subject, but it's all about, you know, connecting to hidden information that most people don't understand or can't even fathom, or pick up on the hidden little codes that are in that information. And it's all about how you perceive stuff. If you have an open mind, like many people do, then things are easily understood. I don't like understanding anything, because then it's above me. I like to stand inner with it, withstanding. Anyways, peace out, y'all. I'm glad you tuned in. I hope this wasn't too long for you. I was trying to make it quick and kind of covered a couple of different topics. So, sometimes we say stuff that triggers more information to just flood out of our mouths. And that's pretty much my connection of how it works, because the information floods my mind and it reaches my mouth, and I just start babbling it out like, a geyser. It just bubbles out. And I go back on those, and then I finer detail and analyze it, and then I make a better explanation later. Like, I'll watch this video a couple times and pick up on things that I said during the video that will help me further understand the things that I was talking about, and how to better explain it to the viewers and my friends and other people. So, like, I didn't understand that video very well. Well, let me analyze it for you. Anyways, hope y'all have a good day. Many be mores to you. Namaste. And until next time, peace out.